Once upon a time, Mega Man was going strong as a franchise, it being one of the best known video game series, with multiple yearly releases actually making it hard to decide where fans would spend their allowance. Then one day, the guy largely credited with keeping the games going resigned from Capcom, metaphorically flipping the Japanese game industry the bird on his way out, and everything just stopped. Well, maybe that's a little dramatic. We still get a good bit of merch, a few of the characters normally make it into the crossover titles, and the legacy collections continue to come out at a pretty decent pace. When it comes to new games though, stuff was cancelled, mainline entries stopped getting announced, and if I can be frank, the few big projects that have come out have been downright insulting. With as starved as we've been for content, you'd think that beggars can't be choosers, but in 3 instances, Capcom has proven that at times, something can be worse than nothing. I'm Wes, the Explosion, and in case you can't tell from that intro, this one's gonna be really negative and depressing. For me, Rockman Xover will always be the low point of the franchise. And yes, I know it's supposed to be crossover, not Xover, but that's how it's spelled, that's how I'm saying it. You gotta put in some actual effort before expecting me to do the same. This was a mobile game, where you automatically ran to the right while having one button to jump, one button to shoot. At the end of a level, you fought a boss, which took the form of a turn-based battle because apparently this was classed as an RPG. Apparently, you got stronger by leveling up and equipping battle memories, which increased your stats. This was also where the monetization came in. My understanding is that it was pretty much Smash Bros. Stickers and spirits, but with gacha. And if all this sounds incredibly basic, boy, you don't know the half of it. What I've been showing on screen hasn't been a video of the game proper, but a flash reproduction on Newgrounds that someone put together in less than 24 hours. I remember when someone who had gotten the chance to play the demo was asked to compare, they said it was pretty much the same. Yup, that's apparently how low effort it was. Of course, I've never played the actual game myself, and likely as anyone else who's watching this, since the backlash to Xover was so intense that it never got released outside of Asia. Another comment I recall when this originally came out was from a Western fan, who complained that if people didn't like it, couldn't they have just skipped it rather than raise such a stink that no one could play it? And at the time, I probably would have agreed under normal circumstances. I wasn't as vehemently against free-to-play games back then, and I might have even tried the game out myself as just something to screw around with on the side. Yet there was something that made me hate this one on principle: the back-to-back cancellations of 3 promising Mega Man titles: Mega Man Universe, Rockman Online, and Legends 3. They'll get their own video at some point so that you can all know just how much Capcom screwed you, though I don't need to explain it for Legends fans, they already understand. To lay it out for you, Capcom canceled 3 games that various parts of the fandom were really looking forward to, and as a consolation prize, we were expected to throw money at this game that was barely a game for some extra PNGs that we could have gotten from a quick Google search. This might be relevant again later. My point is, during a time when we were getting a steady stream of games, this one could have been a harmless little time killer or easily ignored, but when it came out, it was hard to see it as anything other than a slap in the face. But hey, it's not all bad. I feel like it'd be disingenuous not to mention that we did get Mega Man 11, a mainline title between both of the mobile ones. There's a part of me that wants to continue being cynical and say that Capcom only gave us this one because they saw the success of the Mighty No. 9 Kickstarter and got jealous, or they wanted an excuse to keep the merch train going, or they just wanted to capitalize off the success of the Legacy Collection. Really, that last one would be pretty smart. And honestly, I kinda go back and forth on whether I like this one or not depending on how well my last run happened to go. But since my last one was pretty good, in about 2 hours with no game overs, and I kinda want to keep this part positive, I'm gonna forgo any criticism and just mark this as a win. I feel like they were really smart with this one. Them not going for old school pixels, but not hyper-realism either, picking a nice cartoony middle ground. Keeping it a side-scrolling platformer but adding in a new major mechanic with a double gear to stay fresh, adding in plenty of difficulty options to accommodate all skill levels, and them not charging a full $60 for this title since it was smaller in scale. Honestly, I'm not sure they could have come up with a better plan for this entry. So yes, for a brief window of time, we did have something nice. Then of course we got Rockman X Dive, which, unlike Xover, actually got localized. Released on mobile and eventually Steam, it was another gacha title where you could either gradually build up currency to roll the gacha, or spend whatever your credit card's upper limit was to try and snag your favorite characters from the title's vast menagerie. And if you just got some junk instead, might as well pay for another shot. You'll get it eventually, right, sunk cost fallacy? This one had more substantial gameplay compared to Xover, at least. You going through levels and challenges which required standard platforming, no auto-running, with some hidden elements to encourage exploration. Sure, the levels were incredibly simple, most either having no gimmicks or just dumbed down versions of existing ones, and all characters played exactly the same outside of their specials. While not as deep as I'd want from a mainline title, it's enough for a spin-off that you won't hear nearly as much venom dripping from my words as when we discussed the last mobile title. Instead, let's talk about monetization. I personally despise gacha mechanics. In general, I just hate games of chance, me avoiding the casinos in Dragon Quest, and bosses that rely on RNG to let you counter them being the biggest headaches when I play games. When it comes to things like unlockables, either give me a straight set of requirements to do so, or just let me buy what I want outright if it's DLC. Heck, price things right, and I'll probably just buy the whole set, just look at Smash. When it comes to gacha though, I hate the idea of either working hard or shelling out, and still being left empty-handed. It's the sort of thing that preys upon addiction and poor impulse control. Hotlines for gambling are a thing for a reason. And thus, despite my undying love for Mega Man, I never touched this thing until the $30 no microtransaction X-Dive offline release last year. There's a part of me that wishes I had, just so I could have experienced it and had an accurate understanding of just how hard it was to progress in the game, since I've watched reviews that told me that it's very hard to get far without spending money, while a few people have told me that it was reasonable. While I can't tell you firsthand what the online version was like, I was pretty overwhelmed starting out with offline. All the different menus, different currencies and power-ups, and numbers just going up seemingly for no reason. Not only that, but different characters can really change how you play the game. Yeah, they all control basically the same, but with having special abilities like being able to heal, generate shields that prevent all damage, or, in S-Class Zero's case, do both at the same time. Once I unlocked him, I really didn't have to worry about clearing the story anymore. I could just hit his special whenever it came off cooldown, often before I really needed it again, and not really having to pay attention to anything other than moving to the right. My point is, if I was getting confused by even the streamlined full game version, I can only imagine what a labyrinth the mobile title was, and with characters being that unbalanced, whether the game was a breeze or nigh impossible comes down to luck. Even if you think all of this is fine, a few games of chance are fun from time to time, and those that let something like that ruin them have only themselves to blame, let me leave you with one last thought. Any business model that actively refers to its consumer base as something as unflattering as whales was not designed with your benefit in mind. And that brings us to today. Well, last month anyway, where fans were once again clamoring for something for Mega Man's anniversary, the 36th this time. Personally, I've kinda given up. I figured that while we'll probably get a new game someday, it'll just be unceremoniously dropped in one of the Capcom Presents programs, in between much longer Monster Hunter and Resident Evil announcements. But shows what I know, they actually did something this year, a line of X-Dive NFTs. Oh wait, that's not a game. I was right. Damn it! While I won't claim to be an expert on the subject, I only vaguely understand NFTs because of a very long video done by someone much smarter than me. I do think I can say that not only are they waning in popularity, but a good chunk of people seem to really dislike them, to the point of announcing some will likely draw a lot of criticism. And as you might expect, while some were enthused, there were a lot of negative comments on their announcements. While a lot of them were just straight up mean or making fun of the project, a few comments that stood out to me were ones mentioning how this managed to somehow disappoint their already rock-bottom expectations, or how Capcom just continuing to do nothing with the brand would have been better than this, which gave me the whole idea for this video. Heck, this even kinda sounded familiar, and a quick search on YouTube turned up several videos on the topic from 4 months ago, so I'm actually late to the party here and just teabagging a dead horse. On top of that, an interview with Capcom president Haruhiro Tsujimoto raises some other concerns, in which he said that he feels that game prices are too low. We could argue about whether raising the standard price of games to $70 or more is a fair move, him stating that development costs have gone up significantly and that people in the industry should be paid more, which, depending on who we're talking about, I might agree with that second point. I'd say back though that with DLC and microtransactions, the average consumer cost has gone up already, and that with games selling more than ever these days, a title like ARMS that sold over 2.5 million still being considered a disappointment, that total sales matter a whole lot more than MSRP, but that ain't really the point here. There's a lot more to be said, and people other than me have already said it better. My concern here is Rockman, and whether this mindset even clicks with the series. To me, Mega Man are short, infinitely replayable affairs. While it takes a bit of effort to clear them once, the big appeal to me is mastering each title, seeing how efficiently I can pull off the next run. So would a format like this sound appealing to Capcom if their goal is bigger games at higher retail prices? I honestly think that it can be worthwhile to give smaller budgets to smaller projects to sell at smaller prices. I don't have the market data to know just how proportional it'd be, but it would also have the added value of keeping the brand alive, creating more opportunities for merch, keeping Capcom's lineup of genres diverse, and hey, budget titles are the easiest to get impulse buys from. There are ways around going this route though, and still doing something. There's the option of making a big new entry in one of the series that already has some of the meteor games, like Battle Network, Star Force, or even Legends. They could take the old school formula that they already have and just add a lot more content to it, like Mario Wonder did, and I've seen a few fan projects do similar. Or they could just do what I've heard a few people suggest and completely reinvent the wheel, branching Mega Man out into new genres that lend themselves to bigger budgets. This gives me pause for a few reasons though. First is just how much I love the old games and want more. Second is that this could lead to a spin-off or new series as opposed to a sequel, and quite a few of the Mega Man series need sequels. I will not be okay until I find out what happens with White Axel. The third is just how tiring some trends have become. While I get the appeal of open world and crafting, even if I'm not a fan, I still think somebody needs to say it. Not every game needs to be open world. You know who you are. My fourth concern is just that it could lead to another mobile or live service title, when 2 in my opinion was already too many. All of this is speculation, of course. Maybe we'll get a nice cozy budget title in the same style as Xeon's Past, or maybe they'll come up with something totally new but it'll still be fun. As long as it doesn't follow the gacha route, I'm here for it and open to being surprised. And while I say I'm just guessing with some of this stuff, we did have a project name leak a few years back, Rockman Taisen. According to Google, Taisen translates to battle, which is kinda generic. I could sit here and speculate that it's going to be a fighting game, a tactics title, or another crossover gacha. I really don't know though. All the title really says is that it's not a mainline title, at least in one of the series we already have. Worth noting is that Capcom did trademark a few numbered titles a while ago, but many have speculated that that was just to hold the copyright claim. The important thing with Taisen is that we know nothing about what kind of game it'll be, other than a Mega Man title. And because of this, I have some trouble getting enthusiastic about it, due to all the concerns and past events I mentioned previously. And there's something terribly sad about knowing my favorite series has a future, but being so jaded that I can't get excited about it, isn't there? I'll just continue to try not to think about it and hope that when it inevitably gets officially revealed, I don't sink into a deep depression. What a weird spot Mega Man's in, getting constant attention from fans, with merch and even a cartoon series fully charged. Yet when it comes to the games, while you could say that we do continue to get stuff, I can't imagine mobile titles were what anyone was asking for, and as good as the collections are, ports are not new releases. I was actually feeling a little optimistic with how much Capcom was pushing the Battle Network collections, and how they released X-Dive as a full game, but somehow, NFTs on Rock's birthday just really bummed me out. But now that I've gotten that off my chest, maybe we can move on to something nice, like another video where I gush about character designs, or re-review the Zero games, or maybe even do another list ranking the games from a specific series. I still have 4 left before I need to dip into spin-offs. And of course, I'm not going to let this end without turning it back on you. What do you think of some of these Capcom projects? Would we have been better off with nothing? Do you find them benign, or would you even go so far as to call them good? And were there any other slights I should have mentioned, like X's exclusion from Marvel vs. Capcom 3? Thanks for watching and listening to my woes. You're really saving me a lot on shrinks, and maybe consider subscribing if you're into Mega Man. I promise I'm normally not such a downer.